Sandy. Welcome to my kitchen, and today we are going to be talking about kale. I know, super exciting, right? You're either a fan of kale or not a fan of kale, or you're kind of teetering on the edge of, I don't know if I even want to try kale, but let me tell you, kale is really kind of cool, actually. Not only from a nutritional perspective, but just from a look and feel and versatility perspective. So kale, we know, is high in vitamin A, K, C, right? So we know it's healthy for us. It also has a good source of fiber in there. And great, perfect. I know kale's healthy for me. It's green, it's leafy, but still not a fan. So today I want to show you how to kind of play around with kale and make it your friend. And these kale chips that we're going to make them 3 different ways so you can see the different flavor profiles in there, how easy it is to make. And yes, I'm going to compare them to potato chips. We love the crunch of potato chips, we love the mouthfeel of potato chips, and it makes us feel good, right? It's a good mood food, as what kind of people talk about all the time. Kale can be that as well. It can be flavorful, it can be crunchy, it can have the saltiness in there as well, and you get more bang for your buck. I know you don't believe me yet, but I promise you'll believe me at the end of this. So, 3 different types of kale chips in a short little video here. First, I have 3 different bowls of kale sitting here. Again, this is just curly kale. There are different types of kale. You can play around with the different versions and types of kale depending on what you like. So if you're not a fan of curly kale, play around with dinosaur kale. It really doesn't matter, just find a kale that you like. I like to play with different types of kales because they're all pretty, right? There's different color spectrums of kale too. So find a kale you like. I do love dinosaur kale as well as the Russian kale. Those are all fun kales to kind of play with. So in my bowls, again, 3 different types of kale chips. I first want to make sure I'm peeling off the fibrous part, the stem of the kale. We don't want that in our kale chips. You can reserve that for slaw. I make a good kale stem slaw. I also do pickled kale stems, so don't throw this baby away. You can use this and process it, vinegar, something that's gonna break it down. You don't wanna gnaw on this though in your kale chips. So I'm just gonna make sure, most of it's pretty good. I just wanna make sure I get some stragglers, and all I'm doing is literally peeling that fibrous stem off from the leaves. And I've also already cut my kale into kind of, you want bite-sized pieces of kale. You don't want to be gnawing on a big leaf of kale as a kale chip. That's no fun either. So just peeling these off really quickly here. There aren't too many. Again, I'm going to save these because I do like to make pickled kale stems, and I'll put those in my tacos. I know it sounds weird, but it's really good and it adds a nice flavor to your tacos. All right, I think I got everything. So our first kale chip that we're going to make, again, I have my oven preheated to 200, low and slow with kale chips. You don't want to do high, you're going to burn them and then you're going to regret it and say these are disgusting. So low and slow to get that crispy kale chip. You want to dehydrate it basically, so you're not letting it sit and soak up, and you don't want all soggy kale chips. So our first kale chip, I'm doing my play on salt and vinegar kale chips. I love salt and vinegar potato chips, so translated this into a kale chip. I have my favorite vinegar here. It's a Serrano honey vinegar, so I don't know if you go to vinegar stores or anything like that. You can get any specialty vinegar here. So I have olive oil, salt, and my vinegar. So I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of my vinegar to my kale. This is about 3 cups of kale. Play around with it. You can do more or less, but again, I'm doing 3 types of kale here, so I am not doing a huge batch of it. Again, this is gonna cook down to nothing. A tablespoon of olive oil. You can use any oil, you can use canola oil. I just like olive oil, so I'm using a tablespoon of olive oil. And then a teaspoon, I'm really not gonna put the whole teaspoon, I'm gonna do about a half a teaspoon of salt. And literally, that is it for this batch of kale chips. That's it. Simple, I told you, super simple. I'm gonna let this sit before I toss it because I'm gonna toss them all together. Let that sit and marinate for a little bit here. And now we're gonna move on to our second kale chip. Again, super easy recipe here. This bowl of kale chips, I forgot a little stem here, let me take this off. And another one, I don't want those in my thing. All right, so this bowl of kale chips, 2 tablespoons of oil, olive oil again. And then I'm using everything. I'm making these everything spice kale chips. I have an everything spice in my cupboard I just got from the store. It literally just has salt, black sesame seeds, traditional sesame seeds, garlic, poppies in it. You can make your own everything spice as well. It's super easy. This is 2 tablespoons. That's it. We're done. That's 2 types of kale chips here, okay? I'm gonna let these sit here and then we're gonna toss them all together. This last kale chip though, I will tell you, I'm gonna move these over to the side here. This last kale chip is one of my favorites and it's gonna be one of yours too. It does require a little bit more effort. So, in these kale chips, I have about 6 cups of kale because these are my favorite, so make a bigger batch of these. I'm using what's called nutritional yeast. This is gonna make it seem like it's cheesy without the cheese. So I'm making cheesy kale chips here. So what is nutritional yeast? Nutritional yeast is deactivated yeast, right? You think of yeast when you're making bread and things like that. It's active, that's why your bread rises, and you're proofing, that proofing phase, it's rising, it's activating. You're feeding the yeast. Well, this is deactivated, so it's not gonna do that in your gut or anything like that. And the flavor of this is nutty and cheesy, savory, right? So you feel like you're getting cheese, but you're not. And a lot of vegan cooking uses this in some of the cheese sauces. You typically pair it with a nut, typically cashews. I don't have cashews today, so I'm gonna be using almonds, but again, playing with this. And then it's also a good source of B vitamins and protein. Ooh, I just breathed on it. But I love the smell of it. It is, you can smell that nuttiness of it. Super fun to use. So, we're gonna make our cheese kale chips here. And I have 2 tablespoons of soy sauce going into a blender. I have 3 cloves. They're kind of baby cloves, so you really only need 1 clove, but they're teeny tiny baby cloves, so I'm using 3 of them in this. Then I have soaked my almonds for at least an hour in water. You can soak them overnight if you want to. It's softening them because we're going to be pureeing them. I'm going to drain the water off here. And these are just regular almonds. These are actually just blanched almonds, but you can use any almond. I don't recommend using salted almonds because you're already getting the salt from the soy sauce. Then I'm adding my 2 tablespoons of olive oil in here. And then we're gonna pulse it up. You can add water too. I'm just gonna play around with it and see how I do. But you want it to be a little bit thicker because you want it to stick to the kale chips and make that cheesiness to it. All right, here we go. And then I'm gonna add just a little bit of water just to kind of get this going. About a tablespoon of water. Mixture in here, and then I'm going to pour it over my kale chips. Yay, so good. And then I'm going to sprinkle in the rest of my nutritional yeast, and this is about 1/3 of a cup of nutritional yeast. Again, you can find nutritional yeast pretty much in any grocery store now. It's in your baked good aisle by the rest of the yeast and like the dry milk area. If you can't find it, just ask somebody and they can walk you through. Okay, So I have not one, not two, but 3 versions of kale chips here, right? Massaging this in, and you can see here, I still have one more stalk. I don't know how I missed that. That's okay, we can still take it off. Put it in here. All right, my favorite cheesy kale chips. You're gonna massage this in here. Look at how good these look. Oh, I can't wait. All right, so I think all you're doing is just mixing it until it's combined and everything is kind of nice and coated in here, which it's looking great. And then we're gonna do the same for the others. Wash my hands. All right, so then I'm gonna toss my everything spice kale chips here just until everything kind of gets coated on here as well. And massage it in. I'm all about getting that oil in all of the leaves, and it's okay to press them in a little bit, squish them down. I'm fine doing that. Okay, I'm just gonna go in here. I don't care. I'm gonna massage that oil and vinegar into my kale chips here. My salt and vinegar kale chips, so good. Okay, and that is it. Now, again, my oven's preheated to 200 degrees, low and slow with these beauties. I'm gonna put them on sheet trays. You wanna make sure, you're probably gonna need 3 sheet trays here, or baking pans. Oh, that vinegar got me in my throat. Spread it out in an even layer. You don't want all of these to be on top of each other because they're not gonna dry out properly. 200 degree oven, you're gonna go for about 2 hours. Check them after an hour, flip all the chips over so they can cook evenly, and then another hour and let them go until they're crispy. And that's it. Hi, welcome back. So our kale chips have just come out of the oven. They were in there about 2.5 hours, and now they're all crispy and delicious, and you can see how amazing they look. This is my vinegar, my salt and vinegar version, my everything, and then the cheesy delicious one. So you can see here, like, how beautiful is that? Oh, it's so crispy and delicious and ready to go. You just basically pile these up, put them in an airtight container. They'll stay for a couple days, but you're not gonna let them last for a couple days because they're absolutely amazing. And these are the cheddar ones, I keep saying in air quotes, that we did with the nutritional yeast, which are pretty cool. I'm gonna put some pictures at the end of this video so you can see just how that texture came out and what they look like, because it does look like melted cheese on here, and the flavor is outrageous. You can also use nutritional yeast on popcorn too, so you could do the same effect on popcorn as well. Again, play around with your kale, find a kale you like, make all different types of kale chips, figure out which one is your favorite. Again, mine's the cheesy one that we just did here, but have fun, enjoy, and you get a nutritious treat after that. And I guarantee you'll probably eat these a little bit more than potato chips in the near future. At least try to anyway. Take care.